Hello, I'm Stephen Galpin and I'm joined today by Sara Newson, founder and MD of Realm 47 Property Investment Group. Welcome, Sara.
Thank you.
And joining Sara is David Galman, ex-director of Galliard Homes and now property consultant. Welcome to you, David. Sara, we're going to start off with you, and the question is this. Property valuation levels dropped significantly during and post-COVID. Are the panels still experiencing the trend for lower valuations, obviously causing further difficulties, particularly for new buyers to the market?
Do you know, for us in the investment market, it has been consistently busy in terms of valuation levels. What we do notice is those valuations varying quite significantly, and that depends on their confidence, the valuer's confidence in the market. So we quite often see periods where properties aren't valued at what they are sold at. So they're coming in with a lower valuation when they're actually visited. So we in the investment world see that quite a lot. But in terms of volumes and levels of valuations happening, we are selling at a significant rate most of the time. And so we haven't noticed the valuations drop off.
When you say valuers are looking at their confidence in the market, are you suggesting that they're looking forward to a market? Because that's really not Red Book valuation regulations, is it?
Absolutely, it's not something that they should be doing at all, but it is something that does happen, unfortunately. But yes, 100%, it's not textbook.
The problem that we get down here quite often is a valuer will say, oh, well, you know, there's 10,000 apartments coming on stream in the next 2 years. Well, sorry, chum, that doesn't matter. Your brief is to value for today.
Exactly.
As the market is.
You can't argue with them, unfortunately. You can argue with them, but you won't win the argument.
But you just don't get the opportunity, really, do you?
Well, they won't speak to you.
No.
And that's part of the problem.
No.
I think it is. I think it is. Again, an area of the property industry that needs looking at. We need consistency of valuations, and we perhaps need to take into account a different set of conditions or variants, but make it consistent across the country.
Absolutely, I could not agree more. It is a major issue, and it prevents people from buying multiple investment properties at times, because then they end up having to put more money into that property, which they were going to use to buy another property. That's the second rental property off the market. The valuers will come back to you and they will say, well, it's a matter of opinion on the day. And they do take future things into account, and what's coming in the market. And, you know, it was said to me 2 days ago, well, there's all these one-bedroom apartments coming up. That should not affect the valuation on the day. It's about demand on the day and the property value on the day. So we have instances where we will say, okay, that lender and that valuer's come in and valued the property at X. And then we'll have another valuer come in the following week and he will value it at a different amount. And the following week, we'll have a third valuation, it'll be a completely different amount. And we have had a spread on a single property of a one-bedroom apartment of 185 to 230,000 on 3 valuations. This is where the problem lies, and most people, most of the general public and most investors will not think to go for another valuation, so they're not seeing it and getting this physical evidence. We know it happens. For me, I don't take no for an answer, so we go and we try again and we go to a different valuer and we go to a different lender. And this is where now I can provide this evidence and I build a picture, so I can then tell my clients and we say, okay, we're not going to go with that lender at the moment because this is what's happening in our area, geographic area with that lender. So let's look at another lender. Then they don't waste their money on a valuation and application fee, and we move straight to the ones where another investor or myself has spent the money and made the mistake. We learn from our mistakes and we move to that lender and we work with them for a period of time until we see or we think there has been change in their viewpoint.
I mean, over the last few years, we've suffered various things with valuers. We've had drive-by valuations where they just look at the area, drive by, or perhaps even don't drive by, but drive by on their computer.
Absolutely.
I'd like to say that I'd like to see consistency with valuations by way of probably centralised information. But the downside of that, of course, is if you get a valuer that is, for whatever his reasoning, down valuing very badly, once it goes on that central register, you've had it really, because every other valuer will chime into that database and say, well, that's the value then.
They speak to each other anyway. They always speak to each other, and they confer about, especially for new developments coming online for completion, and the valuers are all going in there en masse. They'll chat to each other, and they'll bit like a cartel. I don't think they get paid enough either. They don't get paid enough per valuation. So why should they put themselves out if they're getting £250 for
again, that's the point, isn't it, David? You've got some valuers that will charge their lenders, because they get a huge amount of work, 100, 120 quid for a valuation. You'll get a very good reputable firm of chartered surveyors who'll come in and want to do a valuation and want to charge 5,000 quid for it. Where's the difference? Actually, there is none. It's just the commercial volume of work that they get. Don't know how you control it really. Don't know how we make that better.
No, but to add, I'm not demonising valuers on the whole here. Valuers that we work with are great, and they do talk to us as well as each other. And I do feel for them in most instances, it's very difficult for them to value. So HMOs, if they've been told that they've got to value using comps that have sold in the last 6 months within a less than a quarter of a mile radius, it's very difficult for them to then find comparables, especially when the land registry is as far behind as it is, to find those comparables to actually value the property. So I do feel for them in that aspect, and we are working very hard and very heavily with them at the moment to build those comps and provide them with their comps. So they are coming to us for those comparables.
I like the way, Sara, that you said your valuers up there are great. Well, if you've got his name, send him down to us.
we do take names.
We'll give you some work down here.
100%.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that, Sara. David, do the experts think that the decline in the numbers of smaller buy-to-let investors will slow down development projects, as a significant sector of the industry may not be buying in the same volume as they have previously done so? What do you think?
Well, I think there was a period where there was a case in point for that, but I think what appears to be happening, which we touched on earlier, PRS has become huge. The government are very, very keen on big insurance companies, big overseas international investment companies in helping develop entire buildings, entire parts of development for this private rental sector, which they believe is going to professionalise landlords, professionalise the whole rental thing. So they will take up the slack. But unfortunately what that's doing is that's taking entire developments off the market for owner-occupiers to come and buy, because the whole scheme is being sold to Aberdeen Investment or Aviva or so on for rentals.
Well, the other slight problem with heading towards PRS multiple sort of ownerships, or huge multiple ownerships, is that if you look at the amount of complaints in the rental market relating to bad maintenance, damp, all this sort of thing, bad building maintenance in its totality, I suppose, the biggest offenders are the councils and the housing associations.
Absolutely.
Which are the biggest semi-PRS investors. That's the difficulty I see, because you've got nobody regulating them, have you really? The government doesn't really know how to regulate such things, and I don't know who does.
I'm not sure if anyone does, and I think that's part of the problem. Yeah, the biggest offenders, where the government are trying, governments, so we can't just label it all on the new government, it's the old government, the same thing. They are trying to get rid of what they see as the small landlord that was perhaps a rogue landlord, and they're going to professionalise it and so on and so forth. As you rightly say, housing associations and local authorities are the worst offenders.
Yeah. So what do we do about it?
Have some kind of private organisation in charge of these local authority housings.
Yeah, David, we've got a job.
Oh,
how's that? What do you think? Is there a solution to this?
I'm not sure that there is, to be honest, but going back to the question with regards to investors and steadying development, from my perspective, we're struggling anyway with on the development side and construction side. So a slow would probably, be more beneficial to the construction industry and the development industry. But
You're struggling because you can't get things built?
we
Too
just
expensive?
there's not enough contractors.
Oh, wow.
I'm to the point where I'm looking now at starting a construction side to my business and employing people, because it's so difficult to find firms that aren't booked up for 12 months, the good ones.
But the reason is so because they haven't got the personnel since the Brexit visa regulations. How are you going to make that any easier? How are you going to recruit your people?
Pay higher wages.
I'll pay them more, ultimately, to get the job done. I mean, we do a higher spec anyway, so we would be able to support that, and then bring in, obviously, apprentices as well as the experienced people to work alongside.
Quite a long-term project then.
Indeed.
Very laudable.
Very laudable. Well, I mean, David, you've built some very big stuff down here. I mean, have you in the past or pre-Brexit had difficulty in attracting labour, and was there a huge difference once we did come out of the?
I think there has been a huge difference once we've exited, and you notice for periods of time, even when you do have that international workforce, that for the summer they disappear for 6-8 weeks, go back home wherever home is, and that makes it a little bit more difficult in terms of construction. There's a lack of people out there. You're right, and it's very, very difficult at the moment.
Yeah, and I don't see it getting any better for quite some time. I know the government are very keen on apprenticeships and steering perhaps certain sectors of youth away from university degrees to taking sort of practical apprenticeships. I kind of get that, but it's a long way down the line, isn't it?
It takes time, but that side of the industry is going to boom because of, in my opinion, AI. I think practical skill set is going to be so much more valuable over the next few decades before we get to a point where we've got robots coming in as well to do these jobs.
But what's that got to do with AI?
AI is now coming in and taking over. So marketing, we can use AI a lot more for marketing jobs. Right. So going to university for those kind of roles, there's going to be fewer of those roles available. But I think we won't be AI can't take over laying bricks and putting wires in walls. And
it can teach a lot though, can't it?
It can.
Yes. I know I was with a friend of mine on Sunday, and he said actually he was learning to play chess, and I said, how are you doing that? And he said, AI.
Yeah.
So
amazing.
Very good. Sara, do the panel think that the compensatory transport packages and plans replacing the West-East cancellation of HS2, which will actually happen, and if they do, will it have a genuine and beneficial effect on travel in the north of England?
So this was announced in the autumn budget. Rachel Reeves said that she is going to be putting funds towards creating the tunnels and extending into Euston.
Well, that's our bit down here.
Yes, but it will only go as far as Birmingham. So when the question says, will it improve travel to the north of the country and the rest of the country? Not really, only to Birmingham. So it will have a positive impact, and I do think it needs to be resolved.
But they've promised you West-East links being built.
They've said they're going to improve the York to Manchester line,
right?
Which
what more
is
do you want?
Absolutely music to my ears.
Right.
But I need to know what those improvements are going to look like in terms of how much quicker. Because the trains that we have running from York to London, brilliant, big trains, fast trains, travelling at 125 miles an hour, we get here very quick. If I want to do business in Manchester, which I do, going across there, it takes 2.5 hours, and it's a slow, smaller train. So that needs to be improved. The Northerners want to do business with Southerners as well, but we also want to do business with each other. So rightly so, that needs addressing, but I just don't know what that's going to look like. So HS2, great. Finally, we get some movement on it, hopefully. And I do think that needs resolving, and I think it'll be brilliant for Birmingham and for London. But I'm more interested in what's happening between York and Manchester.
Well, I have to say I'm pleased for London that it is now going to come into Euston, because I thought the idea of saving an hour on the train going up to Birmingham is great, but it's going to take you another hour to get to the other side of London into central London by having to get the Elizabeth line. It's just balmy, absolutely balmy. But I do think across Britain, in the north of England, there is so much improvement that's needed. And
absolutely.
Unless you're just going to accept that those towns and villages are going to be destined to always have a sort of secondary position in the British Isles, then something really has got to break, hasn't it? And I'm sure, I don't think you'll ever get to the stage up there of the situation we have in London, where property investors will follow the if you excuse the pun, the track of a new train line. They won't follow their investments like that. No. It's still very important, and I think it could have a terrific effect on your values up there if it does work to go from Manchester to York, for instance.
Absolutely. If businesses start to locate themselves in different cities, investors will follow in terms of property investment.
Yeah.
Potentially it's a bit soon, when it's okay, there's going to be improvements on the train line, it's still some time off before it'll improve the property market and the housing market. But once businesses start to relocate, that's when we will follow suit.
I think the danger is for businesses is if we get governments that sort of say, yes, we're going to do this, and you make your investment and then it doesn't happen. That's when the real trouble starts and the distress starts.
Absolutely, and we do have to wait and see, don't we?
I suppose so. What do you think, David?
It's just been quite interesting. We were quite active in Birmingham over the last few years as we saw that market improve dramatically. But prices don't seem to have gone anywhere. They crept up initially, and I think there was a viewpoint that it could be less expensive to build in Birmingham and Manchester and so on, but it isn't really.
No.
There's no reason why it should be, and therefore, if you're buying land at similar kind of values and the end value hasn't gone up, makes it very difficult. But Birmingham is a thriving city, and there's an awful lot of new innovative business that have gone in there, and businesses are moving from London up there. So, yeah.
But I think for real progress, if the government really does want growth, we've got to start sort of thinking a little bit more sort of geographically. More, I suppose being more geographically diverse rather than just thinking London, Birmingham, Manchester. I don't know out on the right hand side. I don't know what. Well, I do know where York is, but you know what I mean. I think we've got to genuinely spread out, and there's only one way of spreading out, and that's a building. And if you haven't got the transport links to it, nobody's going to build. That's the real thing, isn't it? I mean, we are spoilt in London, aren't we, David, really, for transport? I mean, here we are in Canary Wharf, we can get into the West End in 14 minutes. There's a choice of lines that we can take. We've got City Airport right on our doorstep. I mean, we're very fortunate. I mean, when I first came to London, I was just blown away with the tube. I just couldn't believe it, how fast you could, cross the city.
No, we are fortunate. You're right. London and the South East has benefited so much over so many years, and I guess you're right. If they are going for growth, perhaps they could have more of these free ports. Perhaps they could create not the whole of Canary Wharf and everything that's been done down here, which we've seen over many years, but give tax breaks to allow these areas to flourish in different parts of the country.
Yeah, I mean it's the same. I think we've been very lucky to keep some of the the automotive industry that we've kept, like Nissan, I think, and one or two others. I thought come Brexit they'd be off, because we were really the gateway to Europe, weren't we? And they may well be in time. I mean, there's all these difficulties now with a lessening demand of electric vehicles. I don't know whether that lack of enthusiasm will spread into the construction industry, lack of enthusiasm for sort of green contributions to a development site. I just don't know. I don't know where we're going. I'm not sure we've got the leadership to guide us.
Grown-ups have left the room, though, but they said they'd come back.
The grown-ups?
I'm not sure. The grown-ups said the grown-ups.
All right. David, your question. Interest rates recently dropped, however the market is beginning to see a small but upward movement in the mortgage rates. Will this significantly affect the new build industry?
I think it will affect it in terms of perhaps not the mortgages at the end of the line, but developers have got to look at what levels they can borrow at. And if you're looking at 5 and 10 year money, it's pretty stable at the moment. There's no suggesting. I was at a Savills forecast meeting from their research department, which are normally very good, a couple of weeks ago. and they were very aggressive on where interest rates were going. But I don't think they'd be so aggressive today, because the suggestion is that rates are going to plateau kind of where they are and not move very much, because long-term gilts are quite high. So the government are having to borrow up more money. The mortgage market will eventually settle down, and they just need to bring some more product to the market. What they tend to do is they just withdraw it, rather than just upping the rates of stuff. They just withdraw it, and 1 minute there's 90 types of mortgages, and then there's 50, and so they need to do that. I think you and I can remember 15% mortgage rates.
Sure can.
So where we are now actually isn't that bad.
No.
But it feels bad if you were paying 0.1% for 10 years. So I think people just got to get used to it.
Well, again, I think we really do need a look at the structure of mortgages. I'm very much in favour of sort of family mortgages, where you buy a house as one generation, you take the mortgage out. That mortgage can stay with the house as opposed to the person, and it can go down through the different generations. I think that would solve an awful lot of problems. I think it would also cut any delinquency down in terms of non-payment and that sort of thing. I'm just not sure that the products are right for the day and age that we have. But I think that's the case in a lot of things, isn't it?
Well, I think there needs to be a radical overhaul of all sorts of things, but whether anyone's really prepared to do it, I don't know. It needs youngsters like Sarah to do it all. Young people in the game.
Well,
thank you.
People in the industry like yourself, who are both successful and entrepreneurial at this point in time, you do need to pressure the government to get these things changed. And if you don't say it, who is going to say it?
Yeah.
I mean, we as David quite correctly alludes to, I remember sitting in a developer's office listening to the interest rates going up every half an hour to 15%. I just couldn't believe it. I just thought, what on earth are we going to do? You know, I've got 300 units I've got to sell here. Who on earth is going to pay 15%? But, you know, things iron out, things flatten out, things you get used to, you deal with, and you get on with it. Same with COVID, same with Brexit, same with all these things. But, you know, you guys need to be saying so.
Absolutely.
You need to pressure the market.
No pressure.
No, it's all on my shoulders.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, just very briefly, just sort of 45 seconds each. Where do you see our market at the moment, David?
I think we kind of need a little bit of a reset, and I am actually quite hopeful. Everyone has kind of got the election out of the way, got the budget out of the way, got American election out of the way, which has had an effect, and people are looking at that and interesting to see what the whole geopolitical thing is going to happen in the world. But I'm actually quite hopeful that there are a lot of young people in the market who are going to come through and come up with innovative ways of developing, innovative ways of selling, and change the market generally. So I think we'll be all right, and we just got to keep going.
Okay. David, do you go with me when I say that I think some of the old-fashioned values to the industry need to be brought back? In other words, the price of your house, for instance, if you pitch it at the right price, you'll sell it.
That's the first thing I said to you as I came in this afternoon. The ordinary market in ordinary locations, if there is such a thing, is actually okay if you put it on at the right price. The reason something doesn't sell generally, well, it could be a particularly poor property for whatever reason, but generally it's price. It's all down to price, isn't it?
Come on, Sarah, what's your prediction for the future?
Prediction for the future, do you know what? There's always challenges in the market. Yes, we've got challenges coming up. We've got the stamp duty changes that we've just witnessed, and we've got them changing again in April next year. That is a challenge, but we will navigate it.
So let's finish on that note. So, Sara Newson, thank you so much for coming in today. Really appreciate your wisdom and your comments. David Galman, thank you for coming in.
Pleasure.
Again, great to have your input into the show. Thank you. I'm Stephen Galpin. Thank you very much for watching. See you again next time on Property Matters. Hello, I'm Stephen Galpin, and welcome to my overview of the UK property market as of early 2025. Today, with spring approaching, I'll dive into the latest market trends and explore significant legislative changes on the horizon that could impact house owners, buyers and landlords alike. The UK property market has demonstrated resilience in early 2025, with average house prices experiencing a modest increase of approximately 3% over the past year. This growth is particularly evident in prime locations, while emerging market towns and rural areas are attracting buyers seeking an improved work-life balance. In London, the market presents a dichotomy. Family homes priced under 1.5 million are in high demand, often selling swiftly and above the asking price, especially those near reputable state schools. Conversely, properties exceeding the 2 million mark are lingering on the market longer and frequently require significant price reductions to attract buyers. First-time buyers continue to face challenges. Recent research indicates that only 11.5% of potential first-time owners can afford a property without familial financial assistance. With 1 in 42 homes in the capital now being valued at over £1 million, heaven knows how our London-based youngsters are ever going to buy. New, practical and well-costed designs free from add-ons are the answer here. Several legislative reforms are set to reshape the property landscape in 2025. Stamp duty adjustments effective from October the 31st have the additional stamp duty rate for second home buyers and landlords rising from 3% to 5% for properties between £250,000 and £925,000. First-time buyers will remain exempt from stamp duty on properties up to only £300,000, down from £425,000. This will be effective from April the 1st. The Renters' Rights Bill is anticipated to be enacted by spring 2025. This aims to enhance tenant protections by abolishing no-fault evictions under Section 21 of the Housing Act 1988. This change will require landlords to provide valid reasons for terminating tenancies, thereby offering tenants greater security. Looking at leasehold and commonhold reform, the government plans to publish a draft bill in the latter half of 2025, targeting the abolition of the traditional leasehold system. The reform seeks to grant leaseholders more autonomy and simplify the process of obtaining freehold status. Council tax reforms in Scotland show several Scottish councils confirming significant council tax increases, with some as high as 10%. To fund essential services, this will be necessary. This has intensified calls for a comprehensive revaluation of the council tax system, which currently is based on outdated property valuations from 1991. The UK property market in 2025 is navigating a period of steady growth amidst evolving legislative reforms. Prospective buyers, sellers and landlords should stay informed about these developments so as to make strategic decisions. As the year progresses, I'll continue to monitor how these changes influence the market dynamics and will keep you updated. Thank you for joining me for this overview. Stay tuned for more insights into the UK's ever-evolving property landscape in the weeks and months to come. Now, for those in the property industry who have something to say or good advice to impart and would like to join me on my Property Matters TV show, just message me on my social media platforms to discuss. I'm Stephen Galpin, thanks for watching and I'll hope to see you next time.